Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
And we're back with another edition of the Last Round Boxing podcast. Thank you again for joining us. Let's jump straight back into it, Mike. This past weekend, Vergil Ortiz remains undefeated at 24-0 with a second round knockout, which I just mentioned to you before we came on here. I was very surprised that it ended this early against Erickson Lubin, who takes the third loss of his professional career. He is now 27-3. And Ortiz retains his WBC interim super welterweight championship. Were you as surprised as I was? What did you think about the fight?
I was surprised it was that early. I always thought that Vergil would win, but I didn't think he would make it look so easy. But Lubin just, when you're fighting someone of Vergil's power, just look at his knockout ratio. The last thing you want to do is really back up on the ropes. And I understand it's easier said than done, but I wouldn't have said that, Vergil Ortiz had that type of footwork to put you under that much pressure, especially that early in the fight where someone of, Lubin, I thought before this fight had a pretty good, boxing IQ. He was a highly decorated amateur. I think it was back in, 2022. He was the fourth best super welterweight ranked by, the Ring magazine. So it was... I thought it was a silly mistake to make early on. I could maybe if it was later in the fight, his legs are tired, the brain's not working as good because of all of the shots you've taken and how tired your body is. You kind of just end up there. But yeah, not in the second round, I didn't think.
Did you think it was because, there was some criticism, which to me, when I first saw the clip, because I didn't watch it live, but I saw a good portion of it after. Obviously, I saw the ending right away online. But to me, when I first saw it, it looked like it might have been a premature stoppage. I was like, Lubin maybe could have kept going. And maybe the referee kind of jumped in too early. But then I saw some other camera angles later, especially somebody filming from the crowd from behind. And then I thought, okay, you know what? I can understand the stoppage. I think it was warranted. Did you think it was warranted, or did you think it was possibly premature?
The way that we've seen some stoppages lately, we tend to be erring on the side of caution, I think. Whether it be in boxing or even like MMA, I think the old school way of kind of like going out on your shield in some of these big fights tends to have been like taken away from some people. Because you'd maybe have thought like, early in the fight, second round, referee may let him get a few more shots in because Lubin still should be fresh, right? But maybe it's because he kind of like put his arms up and kind of made himself like kind of like a turtle shell, I guess. And he was, just getting unloaded on, and he was catching some of them because of the way that he kind of covered up and he was protecting himself. But no, at the time, I honestly didn't think it was. I thought, okay, good stoppage, and I don't think Lubin or really his team, from what I remember, protested that much to the point where you'd have gone like, oh man, that's far too early, second round. I think we need to run this back.
Did they interview Lubin after? Because I don't remember seeing anything about like if he gave any post-fight words or anything. Did we hear from him?
I didn't see one straight after because of all of the entourage. Obviously, I'm sure we're going to touch on it next. Like Ortiz and Ennis and Oscar De La Hoya and kind of everybody, entered the ring after that.
Right. Because I was thinking right now, I was like, I don't think I saw any post-fight words from Lubin. Maybe it was like a doctor. Because you're right. I mean, you see the whole chaos after, and we'll touch on it in a second. But they brought Ennis in the ring, and all that. Sometimes we see that. Not sometimes, we see that a good majority of the time where if there's a knockout, the ringside physician will, make the fighter who was knocked out, he will tell them to go back to the back or, be taken to the local medical facility or hospital or anything like that to be checked out, you know. So maybe it was that, or do you think he was just kind of like, oh, you know, we want to focus on the whole Ennis Ortiz thing, so Lubin, you know, we don't need to talk to him.
No, it's probably that, and you know, you did see that Lubin's like legs did go a little bit like it during the stoppage, because I saw a clip from ringside where you saw Robert Garcia actually ran in with the stool.
That was, I mean, like that. I don't want to say I'm surprised, but you know, you don't see stuff like that like too often. You know, you see other trainers kind of go and help the opponents in certain situations like that, but I don't know. Like, just because we don't see it too, like we don't witness it like that on a big stage, you know. I mean, that just goes to show you, man. Like, trainers and somebody like Robert Garcia, who's been in the game for so long, like his fighter just probably got one of the biggest wins of his career. And Robert Garcia, I'm sure he celebrated for like that split second with Ortiz, but then he goes straight to Lubin with a stool, and he's like, "Hey man, sit down," and he, you know, checks him out, and he's not even his trainer. You know, like that was crazy. That was crazy. But you know, and that was good for, you know, that was good for the image of the sport, I guess, you know, to show that, like, hey, look, like the opponent's trainer is his fighter just won, and he goes across to make sure that the other guy's okay, who was just technically knocked out, TKO, technical knockout. So yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you that, like, I'm sure Robert Garcia's, you know, with his experience, and you know, I think he's been a trainer longer than he's been a professional fighter now. You know, with his experience, I'm sure he's seen any and everything in front of him. And he's like, hey, you know, I got to make sure, you know, both guys are all right. So yeah, that was very cool to see. That was very cool to see. And you got to give a lot of credit to Robert Garcia for doing that. Because, I mean, would anybody have really blamed him if he was there celebrating with Ortiz and he didn't do that? Right?
No, I mean, I'm sure most people wouldn't have said anything, you know, because it's like you said, it's unusual, and especially when he gets there before Lubin's own team. So,
yeah, that was nuts. And it wasn't like, if you watch the clip, it wasn't like he got there immediately. There's some extensive seconds, maybe even a minute or so before Garcia got there, and Lubin's team is still not there. So that was crazy, man. That was crazy. But I just think it caught a lot of people off guard in a good way. Because like I said, nobody would blame Garcia if he's in there celebrating with Ortiz and the rest of their team. Because, you know, he just got a big, significant win. So, yeah. No, that was cool. That was cool. Got to give a lot of credit to Robert Garcia for doing that. So, you know, and I'm sure Lubin, you know, remembered that, and hopefully, you know, talked to Garcia and was like, hey man, like, you didn't have to do that, but thanks. You know, that was cool. Like, nice of you to do that. But, you know, transitioning to the Boots Ennis, obviously that Boots Ennis was there ringside watching the fight with Eddie Hearn. This was obviously a Golden Boy event on DAZN. So De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn were in the house. Charlo was in the house. You know, they're all 154 fighters. You know, Ortiz, Charlo, Lubin, Ennis. Like I said, Ennis comes into the ring. Him and Ortiz go face to face. Chris Mannix of DAZN is kind of talking to both of them. Then they both, Ortiz and Ennis, start kind of mouthing off against each other, saying, oh, you know, let's do it. I mean, what was your reaction after seeing both of them in the ring like that?
Just hope that they actually do it, because you hear one thing from Eddie and then another thing from Oscar about a contract being signed, or essentially, you know, verbally the terms have been agreed and DAZN are pushing it. But then later you hear about, you know, Vergil may face somebody else, and it's just you're just like, man, like what's the point in facing off? Like why get Eddie to fly all the way over there, and then later they're talking about the potential of was it Charlo or someone I heard them saying afterwards, like they mentioned like another name. I'm just
who do you think would? Let me ask you this: for Ortiz, because Ortiz does have the interim WBC 154 title, so he has some type of title, even though it's an interim, he has something. What do you think would be a bigger money fight for him? And I'm not talking about competitiveness. I'm talking about, because I think Ennis and Ortiz would be more competitive, but I'm talking about payday and maybe more eyeballs. Would it be him against Charlo at 154 or him against Ennis?
Probably, maybe Charlo.
That's what I think.
Especially if they did it, they're both Texas, right?
Yes. That's exactly what I think. And also Charlo has the rub essentially from Canelo because he fought him. So, he was kind of exposed to a bigger audience. So people are like, oh, that's the guy that Canelo beat, Charlo. He's a twin. So let's just say there's two agreements on the table for Ortiz and Golden Boy. If you were the advisor, if you were kind of some type of decision maker on that side of their team, would you encourage him to go with Charlo because it's probably going to be more money?
At the end of the day, if you're a business advisor and that's all about the dollar signs, right? Then yeah, because I think he would. Charlo seems washed, doesn't he? So I think Vergil Ortiz would, win that. Probably, like you say, get a good payday, and then the fight with Boots Ennis is probably still going to be there because, Vergil's still very young. He's still got probably another decade of his career to go if he wants.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, like you said, like I almost forgot about the whole Texas thing. They're both from Texas.
Yeah.
So I think Charlo's from Houston, I believe. And Ortiz is from
San Antonio?
Is Ortiz from San Antonio?
That's what came to mind.
I don't think it's San Antonio, is it?
No. It says birthplace Dallas, but resides in Grand Prairie.
I'm assuming that's around the Dallas area.
Okay.
I'm assuming it's a greater Dallas area. So that's what I think. But you're right. You put that fight in Dallas, where they've put on fights where right there at the Cowboys Stadium, the American football team, the Cowboys, or not the Cowboys Stadium. Obviously, they put fights at the Cowboys Stadium, but that's 100,000 seats. But they also have that. Don't they have like a smaller arena, which is the Star at Frisco or something like that?
That's right. Yeah.
Right, and that holds. How many people does that hold? Do you remember? That hold, because I think he's fought there. I think Ortiz. I think they both might have fought there. Ortiz for sure, but I'm trying to remember how many seats it holds. 15,000.
Close. 12.
12. So I could see it being there, right? I mean, I don't think that this isn't a Cowboy Stadium 100,000 seat stadium fight, but I think they can do some pretty good attendance figures at that arena, the Star at Frisco, in Frisco, Texas, the Cowboy Stadium, like training facility or something like that. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, Vergil Ortiz for Cal Velasquez there, and Errol Spence also for there.
Yes. So it was Errol Spence. Yeah, I thought Charlo might have been somewhere in there, but I mean, yeah, right. I mean, because you have Boots Ennis, who's from Philadelphia, and I think they're gonna get tied up in like, okay, we want Ennis's team wants to fight in Philadelphia, and then Ortiz is gonna say, well, no, we want it in Texas, and they're probably gonna say, well, let's just go to neutral ground and go to Vegas, right?
try to get a site fee as well.
Right. Like the neutral ground would be Las Vegas, I would assume. But if he fights Charlo, it makes sense for that fight to be in Texas because they're both from Texas.
Yeah.
So, you know, I it kind of comes down to Turki Al-Sheikh and kind of how much he wants a certain fight and how much he's willing to pay, right? Because I feel like he's going to be like, well, I feel like Turkey's going to be the type of guy to say, well, I'd rather see Ortiz versus Ennis. It's a more competitive fight.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a boxing fan like him, I'm sure someone like Vergil Ortiz is one of your favorites, right? Because he's like a 90% knockout ratio. So I'm sure he's somebody that he probably wants to put his money behind.
And he's only like, I think 27. I keep forgetting how long we're coming. I think he got signed by Golden Boy when he was like, I think 18 or something. He was young.
He's 27. You were right, and he debuted in 2016. He had 3 fights in 5 months, actually.
So, Golden Boys. I mean, think about it like this. Kind of focusing on Ortiz for a second. 10 years ago and 12 years ago, Golden Boy had a stable, a lot of young fighters who were making some noise. Jojo Diaz is still around, enough, but he was around that time. They had other guys around. There were some guys who looked promising. They had a pretty decent following here in Southern California, but they didn't pan out. Ortiz is kind of like the only one who's kind of panned out, right? I mean, you could kind of throw Ryan Garcia in there, but Ryan Garcia was signed maybe in his early 20s or something like that. I don't know. I just feel like Ortiz is the longest standing fighter on the stable for Golden Boy that they've held on to and kind of developed to this point. That's really like, hey, he's the only one that's kind of panned out.
And yeah, I would say because he's in terms of touching, right? He's got an interim, but he's very close to touching a world title. And then second is probably our boy Lex.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Yeah. Lex, if you're listening to this, we apologize. I forgot about Lex. And Lex and Vergil are the ones who have kind of been where the investment has kind of panned out to this point, right? I mean, Alexis Rocha. When we say Lex, we mean Alexis Rocha. I think Ortiz is a little bit ahead of Lex. I think everybody would agree with that. But yeah, Ortiz, I think even though Ortiz hasn't really won a full-fledged world title, like at this point it's like, like he's there. He's a contender. He's there.
He's either going to get an email to say that he's got it, or it's going to be in the next fight, I would imagine.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think. Who do you think is the best 154-pounder in the world right now? And take away Terrence Crawford, because Terrence Crawford, I know he went up to 168, and technically he was champion at 154, but I'm not taking into account Terrence Crawford because I just feel like Crawford's already kind of hit his goals as a fighter, and he has nothing left to prove. So, and I think he's like, he's not really going to be involved in the mix just because he's like, I put in my time, and he did. So, who's the best 154-pounder in the world?
I think it's definitely between Vergil and Ennis, and I think I could see that fight turning out. Ennis is up on points, but he gets hit too much, and Vergil just catches him and knocks him out. He's putting on a clinic.
And Ortiz has a good chin.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think it has to be between those two. And then maybe in third place, someone like a Sebastian Fundora. Because
There was also I saw some online chatter about Ortiz and Fundora. That would be a very exciting fight too, just because Fundora is just so tall. Like,
I wonder if he's ever sparred since he used to be he used to be in Indio, Vergil,
yeah,
and obviously
I'm sure he's
from Coachella.
I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
Isn't he going to Stanford?
That's right, he is. Oh wow, I totally forgot about that. That is true. I mean, I think that Ortiz was still going to be a very good fighter, but I think that, remember a couple years ago when he had left Robert Garcia and team, and there was, I guess, some drama there, but then I don't know, a fight or two later, they ended up reteaming again and kind of getting back together. I'm glad that whatever happened during that time, I'm glad that Ortiz and his dad and his team were just like, hey, you know what? Like, we're good with Garcia and team. Like, because it is. Like, I think the work that you get at that gym, I mean, what other gym? I mean, there's obviously Wild Card in Hollywood. There's obviously other gyms, but like, what other gym in Southern California, in California in general, but in Southern California primarily, do you get better sparring and work than you do at Robert Garcia's gym?
None now. Like you said, Wildcard, because it's famous, people just come and go. But I actually, we need to go to the new one. I haven't been to the new one, but
I think they went to Moreno Valley or something like that. Yeah. It's like an old mall. Well, it's not an old mall, but it's like a mall. Like, it's crazy. Yeah, it's just,
from the private setup they had previously to
right. Yeah,
commercial malls, kind of.
Yeah, that was interesting. But they wanted to expand and kind of attract more eyeballs and get more, kids to come and fight. I mean, I get it. All right, putting a bow on this topic, Ortiz defeating Lubin and Ortiz's future. What do you speculate or what do you predict happens for Ortiz in the next 6 months? Who's his opponent? Does he fight Ennis? Does he fight Fundora? Does he fight Charlo? Or does he fight somebody else completely different?
I could see him in there with someone like a Charlo, Charlo or Thurman, someone like that who, like you say, is a big name. Charlo makes the most sense, like we just touched on, both being from Texas, both money-wise crowds. And that's going to be a big payday, I would imagine, for him before throwing them in because, the boxing was, you got to let the fights like marinade. I'm sure someone like Oscar's probably thought about that, and because once if they throw him in there with boots, but it's not like the UFC where you've got guaranteed money for your next fight. It drops a lot, so that drops. I'm sure Oscar's share as well. So I'm sure he wants to milk as much money out of Ortiz as he can, because it's a difficult fight. Even though I just said I think Ortiz actually has a good chance of stopping him, just because he has a very good chin and Ennis can be hit.
It's a very competitive fight, though. It'd be a fun fight. Yeah. A very fun fight. Because Ennis is still, even though he gets hit, like Ennis is still, slick enough to put up a fight. So yeah, that's definitely. I would say that's the best fight at 154, excluding Crawford. I would say that's the best fight. Ortiz versus Ennis, right? Competitiveness.
What about like Fundora against either of those two?
Well, I mean, like, I think Fundora's right there too. Because Fundora,
he sits in the pocket. He doesn't box to his advantages.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't. But it works for him. That's the thing. And I think Fundora's right there. Like, I think he's right there. Him, Ortiz, and Ennis are all right there.
Remember Fundora Lubin, where Lubin went down in the second. Fundora went down in the 7th.
That was a fun fight.
Then Lubin retired in the 9th. Like, what a fight. Unbelievable fight.
That was an unbelievable fight.
Yeah.
Was that last year? Was that 2023 or something?
It must have been a contender for fight of the year.
Yeah, that was a fun fight, man. That was a fun fight.
It was, oh, wow, April of 22.
Oh, I didn't think it was that long ago.
Yeah.
I thought at the latest 2023. Man, time is sure flying, isn't it? Yeah,
on the scorecards at the time of the stoppage, 85, 85.
That's crazy.
84, 85, 84, 85.
That's crazy, man. That is nuts. That is nuts.
In favor of Fundora.
And I'm sure Lubin, that fight probably took a lot out of Lubin. Because even going into this fight against Ortiz, I think wasn't he on a year layoff pretty much? This past Saturday? I think I'm pretty sure he had an extensive layoff. I think it was about a year.
The one before that, he fought Adriel Holmes Jr. in May, but then before that, he hadn't fought since September of 23.
Okay, yeah. So it'd been a while. Man, that's nuts. Yeah, I mean, if I had to guess, if I had the authority, I'd want to see Ortiz Ennis or Ortiz Fundora in terms of competitiveness. But in terms of like eyeballs and stuff, just kind of make it an event as well. They're all events, but I wouldn't mind seeing Ortiz Charlo either. Put that fight in Texas. Think the crowd's going to show up. There's a good chance that this crowd is split. You know, there's a good chance, and that'll make for a good environment, good fun environment. So we'll see. We will see. Moving on to fight preview this upcoming Saturday, the 15th of November, from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London on DAZN pay-per-view. The rematch: Chris Eubank Jr. 35-3 goes up against Conor Benn 23-1. This is the second time they're fighting in this stadium, because the first fight was also in this stadium, which was about 7 months ago. Which was a fun fight. Eubank ended up getting that decision, unanimous decision. Does it end? Does this rematch, Mike, on Saturday? Does it end the same way? What are we looking at?
I think so, unless that first fight really did take a lot out of Chris Eubank, because from what people say, he was in hospital for 3 days just with, dehydration and knocks and bruises and this and that from obviously the fight, because, if you looked at how beaten up he was, he looked, if you showed me 2 pictures and you were like, hey, who won this fight, just by the look of what they looked like afterwards, I'd have said Conor Benn. But,
right.
Maybe just the fact that he's taller, thinner, has a lot less around his body to protect him. Maybe he just, cuts up and bruises a lot easier than Conor Benn, because obviously Ben's coming up in weight. And, he's at 160, but he has to drain himself a lot to get down to it. It's going to be interesting, I think, just going back to that again. Obviously, he's not getting any younger like the rest of us in the world. So it's going to be interesting to see, does Conor Benn also have the boxing IQ to change? Because he's always been very one-dimensional so far, but it seemed to have worked for him, because he's obviously picked his fights very well because of the Conor Benn name. But, looking back at the first fight, Eubank took the first few rounds. Ben came into it in the middle, and then Chris Eubank kind of put a rubber stamp on the last few rounds and took those and essentially stole the fight away. And I don't think Conor Benn really has the boxing IQ to change. He's been one-dimensional the whole time. He isn't the best, most talented boxer. So I think Chris Eubank takes a 2-0, and then maybe, depending on what's left to him, sails off into the sunset. But like we've said previously on this pod, I still think if Canelo decides to do a little world tour, I think he's probably the biggest name and pretty much the only name in and around Canelo's weight division. And Chris Eubank likes money. He likes money a lot.
Right.
Because he's had several chances to fight for the world title and turned them down for easier, sometimes more lucrative fights.
Yeah, wasn't it? I remember him. Didn't he have the IBO world title at 168 pounds, and he was trying to, elevate the status of the IBO, which I think he kind of did, because like I think he did help the quote unquote prestige of the title, because he was carrying it around and defending it like IBO 168 world champ.
It's good enough for AJ. It's I think Triple G was another one that would carry that one around.
Yeah.
It's good enough for them. It's good enough for Chris Eubank Jr.
You think Conor Benn has to knock him out to win?
I think so. I think he, like we said, I think he only has one style, and that's just to get in on the inside and just get rough and ready. And Chris Eubank really didn't have to do that last time, but I think he decided to, because they really don't like each other. I think that macho man inside of him decided, like, you know what, I'm just going to stand there, I'm going to throw down. There wasn't really much boxing in terms of, using your jab and your footwork to, get in and out of range. They just stood in the pocket of each other and decided to throw down. And I don't know whether Chris is going to do that again, because there still seems to be a lot of beef between them, or if he's just going to be like wiser and be like, hey, I did this last time and I spent 3 days in hospital.
Right.
So it's probably better for me to actually, box and move. You could win it with relative ease if he decided to do that.
I mean, do you think Conor Benn would have to try to focus on the body? Because, like you touched on, Chris Eubank was reportedly in the hospital for a couple days after the last fight. Obviously he's the bigger guy, so he has to drain himself a lot more significantly to get to the fight weight. I mean, Ben going to the body, naturally would probably be to his advantage, right?
Yeah, 100%. From the rumors that you've heard during, obviously, fight week, is that, Chris Eubank's come in a lot closer to weight this time, employed a nutritionist.
And it's the same weight, right?
Yeah, Bo Mack is in his corner again. So it looks like maybe the first time around, kind of doing it by himself didn't work, and he realized that, because I think he lost $375,000, which is $500,000, which I believe is about 375,000 pounds for missing weight the first time. So if I was him, I think I would rather spend that on someone with a dietitian, someone to give me a food plan to make my meals
right
this time around, because it's a good chunk of money.
Because he had to pay that to Ben, right?
Yeah, and then Ben bought that Rolls Royce, and then thanked him for it when he got delivered.
That's crazy. That's nuts, man. So I think, like you said, Chris Eubank Jr. is essentially the only name right now in and around Canelo's weight class that Canelo could possibly go to the UK for, have a big stadium fight against Eubank, which would draw a lot of attention. So does Eubank have a lot more to lose, even in this rematch, just because there possibly is a Canelo fight looming in 2026 for him?
Yes, because of the Conor Benn drug saga. Weirdly, Chris Eubank Jr. used to kind of be the villain, the pantomime WWE style villain. But because of what Conor Benn did, he then became the face. Everyone seemed to like him. And then all of the hysteria that he causes in the press conferences, not letting Eddie Hearn talk, and all the other stuff that he does that's just quite humorous at times, that strangely he became like the guy that everyone sort of liked. So I think, if he did lose, I think that would be something that, that would probably hurt him, and the fact that you've got, if he wants to carry on, because I think this purse is $10 million for Chris Eubank Jr. and I believe around $8 million for Conor Benn. If he wants to continue, because I think he's at 36, one big final payday against someone like Canelo after 2 wins over, Conor Benn, kind of the perfect way to kind of just, ride it out into the sunset.
Is this fight, and I don't think so, just based on what I've been seeing as compared to the first one. But is this fight getting more buzz than the first one in the UK?
From me and you being over here in like
Right.
California, I don't think so. I don't think it seems to be. And from what we've seen on social media about ticket sales, maybe because it's, the first one was 7 months ago. So what's that? April. We're looking at like Easter. And then now you're talking, a month before Christmas, asking people to pay.
Right.
And how, everybody at the minute struggling. I don't think, maybe having it so close to Christmas was a good thing because it looks like tickets are doing abysmal.
Do we know, have you seen anything about the ticket performances or what they're selling at?
Someone posted something on Twitter or X now, and yeah, it was pretty bad. There was lots of seats available, and somebody was even saying I think they'd started to drop them below face value.
Do you think that they made a mistake by having it in a stadium again, and maybe they should have went to like an arena, 15 to 20,000 arena?
That's a good question. With how good the first one did, I think you'd assume that it was going to do as good because the fight was a good fight, very back and forth, did great numbers on TV. You had Chris Eubank Sr. appear, which caused a lot of pop, like all over social media.
Yeah, that was big. That was almost as big as the actual fight.
Yeah, which is crazy. And then, so I think, I guess like if you were running it, you'd just assume, and I'm sure they would probably know better than me and you, like, okay, like how close to Christmas is okay, where it doesn't affect, the sales. Or maybe they don't, maybe that's why it's not done as good. But I don't know whether it's because of like, I know a lot of people say that like, you can't write certain things and you can't do this and you can't do that and you can't do interviews because of the Ring magazine. Like, it seems to be like there's less hype for fights because they're telling people that they can't hold interviews or I don't know whether I've put two and two together and come up with six here.
Right.
But it just seems to be the same sort of thing. Like the hype for fights has got less because there's less fighters and people doing the media rounds.
Right. But I mean, are we really surprised? Like this has been happening in sports in general, but especially in boxing and MMA for a long time. Like, and now that essentially the money's kind of guaranteed in a way with, Saudi Arabia being involved and all that, it doesn't really incentivize the promoters and, the fighters involved in the event to solicit or be encouraged to do interviews or media, right? Like, unless it's like kickoff press conferences or stuff like that. Because they're like, oh, the money's there. Like, they're not incentivized to do it because the money's kind of already there. So,
especially if with that DAZN thing, so it looks like they are going to be doing essentially pay-per-views.
And they changed their pricing recently too. Like, some people are, complaining about that.
So then you need to do that for eyeballs. How many fights have been coming up recently where you're like, oh, wow, yeah, I totally forgot about that. And that's me and you. Like, I read Boxing Scene. Like, I have everything on my phone, ESPN Boxing.
Yeah, we keep tabs, yeah.
So, like, for the usual casual fan who finds stuff through interviews, through podcasts, through this, that, and the other, and they're not reaching out and doing interviews anymore, it seems kind of silly to me that, okay, your fight purse is good and is guaranteed, but at the end of the day, you still need to put butts in seats. That's how pay-per-views work, and that's what you all want to be. You all want to be a Floyd, you want to be a McGregor, and they got that from doing multiple interviews, social media. You're not there yet. Then you can maybe slow down and not do them.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a different world, man. Like, I think it's just gonna have to go through the peaks and valleys here in the sport and see how Zuffa Boxing and that whole new conglomerate of a company kind of where they're at in 5, 7, 10 years, But, there's a monopoly. But for UFC is bigger than ever. You know, like they're a multi-billion-dollar company. They were sold for billions of dollars. So I mean, I think they're hoping that happens with boxing too, Zuffa and all that. But we'll see. We will see. So you're picking Eubank again? Decision?
Yeah.
Because if Ben wins, we're probably going to see a trilogy in 2026, right?
Or imagine, right? You'd have to, wouldn't they? Well,
you have to.
Well, looking at those ticket sales like we just touched on, and being a pay-per-view, maybe time will tell. If that 10 million and 8 million just for the main, that's 18 million just for the main event, and the ticket sales are crappy, and if the pay-per-view ends up being crappy, then maybe we won't.
Right? No, you're right. You're right. I mean, what's the pay-per-view price over there in the UK?
I think 20 pounds.
Oh. What was the most expensive boxing pay-per-view fight in history so far over there?
Oof. I've been over here for a while, but I mean, it's gone up in price.
Bro, no, I know that.
Yeah, so I think was it an AJ fight? Was either 20 or 25? But then what did we all pay? I mean, the most expensive one over here, right, was Manny Pacquiao, Floyd. If you did it in like HD, wasn't it like $99.99?
Yeah, it was like $100. Yeah.
So I was over here then, so I can't remember what they paid in the UK for that. If it's not that, then I think it's a Joshua fight, which I think was because it used to be cheaper, and I think they ended up putting them all up to like 20 or 25.
Right. And that's a lot too over there, right? Like 20, 25.
Yeah, I mean, in the UK, you're lucky you get like all of the UFC fights for free.
Right.
Whereas there's one pay-per-view a month over here.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because of the time difference. Like, I mean, even if there were pay-per-views, who's going to get up at 4:00 in the morning and pay for a pay-per-view to watch UFC from America? So,
and you might fall asleep during it anyway.
Yeah, they may as well just give it to you for free because the viewership would be so low. Yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. Also on the card, Jack Catterall, 31-2, goes up against Eco. I haven't seen that name in a while. Usman, 22-1. What do you think about this matchup?
Well, Jack Catterall with his new team. Is it Boise Ennis? He's with Ennis's father now.
Ennis's team, yeah.
So this is going to be interesting just to see what he does, because I can kind of see some stylistic similarities between Catterall and Ennis. So it'd be interesting to see how he does after his first fight with him. And really, if you look at it now, this is a must-win fight for Jack Catterall, because how do you look at his career? Right, he should have had that win over Josh Taylor for the undisputed, which would have taken him into unbelievable wealth. Right, doesn't get that, then eventually gets the rematch, but it's not for undisputed. Wins that, then has a bad fight against like Arnold Barboza, loses that for the world title. So then it's just like, it's such like so hit and miss, and it must be so disappointing for him, because it seems at times that he just gets into like cruise control, and you just like, Jack, just throw more. But I don't know whether it's like a safety style or it's just something he's got so used to. Like if their output is kind of low because he's a counter puncher, his is kind of low at the same time. But it's not like he ever looks like tired at the end where you think like, oh man, he literally threw as much as he could.
Right.
It's more of like he just chooses not to stylistically. So, when he fought Barboza, I was just like, Jack, just keep throwing. Like, you can win this, because it wasn't like Barboza like overtook him. I think it was a split decision that Barboza won. So yeah, just frustrating at times. Like he has that, what's his name? Remember James DeGale?
Right.
Where like he kind of like switches off and you just say, James, what are you doing? Like you're allowing them back into the fight. Like get your foot down, like he just has that type of style of the way that he fights, which is sometimes because I like him and, spoke to him and hung out with him in Vegas, you just got to get frustrated. Like Jack, just just slip it up a gear. Like, take him out of the fight.
Right.
Like you're winning it easily.
DeGale, quick side note on that. DeGale, he was an Olympian, wasn't he?
Olympian, world champion.
Right.
Lost it to the Caleb Truax, then won it back.
But then who did
I was there. I was in Vegas for that.
That was a Vegas fight. Yeah. Who did DeGale fight? I'm not talking about Truax, but I'm talking about like DeGale had fought somebody before, and it might have been an American. I don't even remember who it was, but it was. I remember it was a pretty competitive fight. I don't remember. I think DeGale had just come on the scene.
Wasn't it? He fought Badu Jack.
Was it Badu Jack?
Maybe ended in like a draw or something like that. Or,
maybe that might be it. Yeah, but I remember DeGale. I remember something like that because I haven't heard the name James DeGale in a long time until you said it.
Badu Jack ended in a majority draw.
Yes.
Lucian Bute and Andre Durrell.
Yes, I remember the Durrell fight, but the Badu Jack fight, I remember that. Yeah, that's right.
That's kind of random that we got onto him because his last ever fight was against Chris Eubank Jr.
There you go. Kind of full circle right there, huh? Yeah. Oh, wow. So who do you think? Do you think Catterall pulls this off, or what do you think?
I hope so, because his career has been so stop-start. I hope that maybe going over there, getting into some, like a new place to live, a new training camp, new sparring partners, just reinvigorates him, and then we see like the best of Jack Catterall for, I don't know, the next 2 years or whatever he's got left.
Also on the card, Adam Azim, 13-0, undefeated, goes up against Kurt Scobie, 18-1. Excuse me. What do you think about this fight?
Should be a showcase, I think, for someone like Adam Azim. I think he's just working his way through with McGuigan, great coach. Adam Azim looks like he has all the skills.
18-1 though, Scobie. Do we know anything about him?
It should be like more like a regional type fighter so far, from what I've looked at. And I think Adam Azim, you never know, obviously, but looks like he's going to be a world champion in the making. Just McGuigan's normally kind of goes slowly but surely, kind of test you at every step of the way. And I think so far he's done it with flying colors.
News and notes section of this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. Undisputed heavyweight champion of the world and 5-division world champion and 2-time Olympic gold medalist Clarissa Shields has announced she's decided to stay with the same promoter that she started with, signing a minimum guaranteed $8 million multi-fight partnership with Salida Promotions and Win Records. Shields had said in a statement, the deal represents more than just a contract. It's a statement. I fought my entire career to prove that women's boxing deserves equal respect, equal pay, and equal opportunity. Partnering with Salida Promotions and Win Records gives me the platform to keep breaking barriers inside and outside the ring. Together, we're building something that's never been done before, end quote. So, yeah, I mean, you got to give it to Salida Promotions, man. Dimitri Salida over there, that's kind of like his golden goose, right? Is Clarissa Shields. That's his biggest star that he has, and I mean, she's been able to navigate herself through her career like that. So I guess is she gonna sing or something too, like Win Records? So there's gonna be some type of music involvement as well, right? Something like that.
Yeah, it seems so from what they've said. And the Win Records is, what's her boyfriend called? Like Papoose, is it?
I don't even know.
That's who he signed with.
Oh,
so that's how they got that kind of link up.
Yeah, I mean, networking.
I just don't get where they get the money from. I don't know how he's going to recuperate this, if we're being honest. Like, I know everyone's saying this, but women's boxing isn't that popular. Like, Luda Bella just said it on Ariel Hawani. And
Luda Bella is one of the biggest supporters of women's boxing, too. That I was surprised when he said that. I was very surprised. I was like, oh, wow. I was like, he's been a big supporter of women's boxing for years. And now he's out there in an interview saying that it's not what it was. I'm just like, oh, that's interesting.
I said it to you, like, they had that film about her life. It cost $12 million to make and made $8 million. So it took a $4 million loss. She tried to do pay-per-view by herself before and reportedly did around 5,000.
Right.
Then also she does these fights in, is it Detroit where she's from?
Right.
Thousands of tickets are given out. And I get it. It's super nice. But if they were selling, they wouldn't give the tickets away.
Yeah, of course.
They give thousands of tickets to local boxing clubs. And before people jump down my throat, that's super nice. That really is, to get boxing fans in there. But they do that for a reason. It's not selling. Like if they could sell them, they would sell them.
Right.
She tried to do like that all women's card that flopped. So I don't get how they're going to make this $8 million back because.
I mean, I'm sure.
Not as popular as people portray.
It's not a small amount. I mean, I would think you would assume that there was a lot of, data analytics and kind of like, potential performance metrics involved in this. Because I mean, $8 million is not. It's nothing. I mean, it's not nothing. It's a lot of money. So, I would think that there's something there that kind of like, hey, we can make some profit here. We can do it. So, I mean, you would think, but there's not a lot of people out there who would be willing to take a loss on $8 million, let alone $500, $200 or something like that. You know what I mean? So.
She said that. I watched the interview with Errol Hawadi yesterday. She spoke to Eddie Hearn, and she also spoke to MVP. And she said she was very close to signing with MVP. But essentially, Salita and Win, they gave her the most money. I think it's $8 million, and she didn't specify it's $8 million with a $3 million signing bonus. So I'm assuming that $3 million is part of the 8.
That includes, yeah. I mean, you got to give it to Salita though, because Salita, I think he realized like, okay, she's shopping around, and ideally, maybe if she went to MVP or even Eddie Hearn, but especially MVP with Jake Paul, it would elevate her and her status being associated with Jake Paul and MVP. But you got to give it to Salita because, he was probably the odd man out. And he figured out a way to put this deal together and got her to stay. I mean, you got to give it to him, man, because Salita is not in that. Salita Promotions isn't in that same realm. I think we can all agree that MVP, Most Valuable Promotions, Golden Boy, Matchroom, they're not on the same wavelength.
She hasn't got anybody to fight.
Right. Well, I think that's also why maybe there's music involved. She's beat everybody. Like that's the thing. It's just kind of like, I mean, she has beat anybody possible that she could fight. She has. I mean, it is what it is.
The only one who she could do, I think is Raquel Miller,
right?
Who just signed with MVP, and if she went all the way down and Michaela Mayer moved up, and she went back to like 160, and Mayer came up to 160.
Right.
And then Michaela Mayer just did a unified world championship fight in Canada on a Thursday night.
Yeah, that was recently. And
I'm just talking facts. She just doesn't sell.
No, right. Yeah.
It's just I don't get. But hey, good for her.
I mean, it worked out. I mean, she's at the $8 million. Yeah. Like, what are you supposed to? I don't think anybody would turn that down. The $8 million like that.
Crazy, man. Like, that's great. It's crazy money.
Also, Moses Atauma will return to the ring reportedly on January 24th of 2026 in Manchester, England, taking on the American Jermaine Franklin at the Co-op Live Arena. What do you think about that fight?
Very good test. If you look at, because as we do, Atama gets in there. Franklin is, somebody that's very hard to get out of there. Like he's fought Dillian White before, for Anthony Joshua. So if Atama gets in there and actually does manage to get, Franklin out, then obviously straight away there's going to be comparisons, right? As fans between, Atama did that. Joshua couldn't do it. So I think it's, it's a good step in the right direction. And they seem to be moving Atama pretty quick. You know, he's got Jermaine Franklin and then Dillian White in his last couple of fights, and the guy's still young. So,
oh yeah, they're pushing him like there's a rocket on his back. So they're behind him big time. So I would say by 16th fight, he's in a very significant fight with a significant opponent, like a big name.
Yeah, man, towards the end of next year, you'd think, right? Like, if he gets, because he's with Frank Warren, and they're all with Frank Warren now. He's like a Don King. You know, Joseph Parker and all those guys are all in there. So it's going to be interesting. Well, so he just lost, didn't he? So, what do you do? You stick Moses Atama in there with like a Fabio Wardley? Let Wardley have a...
Yep, maybe.
Pay him some good money?
I would watch that fight. I think that's a pretty intriguing fight. Yeah, like you said, Frank Warren does have a pretty good stable right now.
Yeah. But of heavyweights,
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
Also, WBO junior middleweight champion Xander Zayas and WBA champion Abbas Barrow, hope I said that right, are set to meet in a title unification fight at the end of January 31st, in San Juan, Puerto Rico, reportedly told to ESPN. I mean, this seems like a homecoming fight for Xander, right? To kind of have have a fight in front of his home crowd and all that, his home country.
Yeah, exactly. A top rank prospect, or I suppose prospect no more. Got a slice of the pie in that division. So, like we just touched on before, it's you've got your Ennises, your Fundoras, all those guys in there. So it's going to be interesting, because I would imagine after this fight, you got nowhere else to go, right? Again, then some of those other big names at the top of the division. So, young, kind of like a young division, really. You look at
it really is.
Guys.
Yeah, it's wide open right now. Yeah, and I'm assuming. I do wonder how, because it's like a Coliseum or something in San Juan. Like, I wonder how much the seating is, like how many people could fit in that arena or that location.
I wondered what channel it was going to be on. It's on Tubi TV.
And it's a top rank show, right?
Yeah.
So it seems like they're probably Top Rank is right now just kind of like case by case basis, right? Like, hey, maybe they're probably approaching different broadcasters per fight, and then if nobody wants to offer any money to put the fight on, then Top Rank maybe just pays the licensing just to be like, hey, can we just pay for some airtime?
Yeah, they have to give fighters fights contractually. So
you have
to get them out.
Tubi TV, huh? Yeah. And we still really haven't heard anything about a TV deal with Top Rank either.
Not officially, no.
I mean, I do wonder what... I know we talked about it before, but I still think that there's a chance that Top Rank gets sold to TKO.
It makes sense if they're trying to different avenue streams, and
they're both like Vegas West Coast companies.
Yeah, and it's just like we said, that they've got that many companies that they can take over a city. Like, you could get your slap fighting, your bull riding, your WWE, your UFC, and your boxing, all in one weekend in Vegas. Boom, Chicago. The circus, essentially, the circus goes with you, right?
Right.
They take over Chicago, they take over New York. You've got everything all in one little area. So it kind of makes sense.
Because they're trying to make the West Coast, LA and Vegas, like the corporate headquarters of like TKO. Even WWE, because the president of the WWE, Nick Khan, who was a former sports media agent and became the president of WWE, he's based out here in the West Coast. I believe he lives in Vegas, but he's out in LA and Vegas a lot. He grew up in LA, I think, and Vegas. Obviously, the UFC is in Vegas. TKO is I don't know where their official address of record is. I think it might be, I mean, is it LA, Vegas? Might be LA, but Vegas isn't that far from Southern California. On a plane, it's 45 minutes to an hour. On a car ride, a couple hours, 3 to 4 hours. But yeah, I mean, I could see, for example, TKO owns the WWE and they're based in the New York, Connecticut area. They have been for decades, but I've seen some information, some reports and rumors and innuendo saying that, they want to make the WWE a Vegas company, like corporate headquarters and all that. I mean, I think they're trying to move them all this way, be close to LA, but you still have no state tax, a little bit more tax-friendly state in Nevada. Vegas is still a big city. I mean, look at WWE, for example, under TKO. They're doing their WrestleMania event, which is their biggest event of the year, for the second consecutive year in Las Vegas. And I think initially they had announced that there was another city they were going to take it to, and then they changed it, and they said, "Oh, actually, we're going back to Las Vegas for the second year in a row." So it only makes sense, man. I'm telling you, I think Top Rank gets sells to TKO, and TKO gets that, because just imagine like TKO like having the fight digital library that Top Rank has, Muhammad Ali and stuff like that. Like just the media library that they have is very lucrative. So yeah, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see. And then all these fighters who are with Top Rank right now, and these younger fighters and stuff, let's see what they do in the future. But yeah, we're here in the holiday season, but I'm sure 2026 you're going to see a lot more movement in the boxing world in that regard. So we will see. But once again, guys, we appreciate you guys listening to this week's episode of the Last Round Boxing Podcast. And as we always do, Mike, go ahead and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
At the Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter. And be sure to join us next Monday.
We will be back next Monday, hopefully with a guest too. We've been trying to secure a guest. We almost had one today, but schedules had to change a little bit. So hopefully we have one next week for you guys. So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the Last Round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round